last week, this compilation surfaced on social media, and it compiled all these different clips from Joe Rogan's show where he said the N-word and mashed it up all together. And it went viral on Twitter, and then everybody started calling for Spotify to pull the plug on him. If you don't remember, I think it was about a year ago, Joe Rogan made a deal with Spotify, $100 million deal, to bring all of his shows onto the Spotify platform and to do all of his new shows on Spotify. So you can't get Joe Rogan anywhere else. They don't have his episodes anywhere else. They don't stream the new ones anywhere else. $100 million deal to get him on Spotify, all of his previous stuff and all of his future stuff. So everybody's calling on Spotify now saying, hey, what's the big idea? You let this racist on your platform. You have to do something about it. And Spotify can't really do that because Joe Rogan is bigger than like anything. He's bigger than cable news. He is one of the biggest, most influential talking heads in America. That is who normies listen to. What's more is they sunk $100 million. That's a pretty big deal into him and into his catalog. So they're in a really tricky spot here. They're in a very tough position. They've got this contract. They sunk a lot of money in this. He's a big get. He's a big catch. But at the same time, they now have this revolt on their hands where you've got the usual SJW mob on social media. But then you've also got Spotify employees and musical artists that stream on Spotify that are protesting this. So this is the article from CNN. It says, Daniel Ek, the chief executive of Spotify, addressed Joe Rogan's past use of racial slurs on Sunday night, telling staff in a memo that while he found the comments, quote, incredibly hurtful and inconsistent with the company's values, he did not believe silencing the podcaster was the answer. And, go figure. They gave the guy $100 million and conveniently, they just have this conviction that silencing him is not the answer. Something tells me that that's not actually what they believe. It's just more about money. X comments come as Spotify faces an unprecedented crisis over Rogan's rhetoric on race and COVID-19 that has enveloped the company in controversy and led to a growing number of recording artists and podcasters abandoning the platform. Rogan, who vowed last week to do better when discussing matters related to the pandemic, apologized Saturday morning after a video compilation of him using the N-word was widely shared on social media. Rogan said he is, quote, not racist and had not used such language in recent years. He admitted in an Instagram video posted to his account that he acted inappropriately, though he said the videos being spread online took him out of context. Rogan conceded, nevertheless, that, quote, whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you effed up. And I clearly have effed up. Spotify struck a deal in 2020 with Rogan to exclusively carry his immensely popular podcast on its platform. The Wall Street Journal reported the deal was worth more than $100 million. So, in the first place on the controversy itself, I know, this is not like a new thing. Oh, someone got canceled for saying the N-word or being racist. But it really is ridiculous that, folks, it's just a word, It's just a word. And the other thing is, and we all know that, I think everyone understands this, I say it all the time. And I actually say it more because it's taboo. I don't all the time say it hatefully. Not every time that I say it do I say it in a derogatory way. Sometimes I do. No kidding. I would never do that. But if anything, I say it more because I am exercising my freedom. I am exercising my free speech. I'm demonstrating that I'm not controlled. And I don't do it gratuitously, but I do it spitefully and vigorously. It's edgy, it's provocative. If they tell a race of people you can't say a word, of course I'm going to say it because you don't control white people. And white people are not second-class citizens, but that's how we're treated. And even, there's sort of a sequence here where it goes something like this. Well, you said a word, and saying that word, the act of saying it makes you a racist, and being a racist is bad. And like this whole sequence, there's so many problems here because, and again, this is not a new conversation by any stretch. It's been going on for decades. But of course, we have to ask then, well, what is a racist? And how would saying a word make you morally wrong? It's a racial slur. You know, is it offensive? Yes, it is offensive. You know, people call me a spick because I'm Mexican, or they call me a greaseball because I'm Italian, or a Mick because I'm Irish. And, you know, if people said that in a derogatory way, it would be offensive. But we use offensive speech all the time. People use offensive speech about everything. You call people fat, dumb, ugly, whatever. You say they're poor, their clothes don't look good, their house is messy. I mean, really, that's what it's getting at here, is it's a racial slur. It's insensitive, it's offensive. By definition, yes, it is both of those things. But is there anything inherently wrong with saying words that have the potential to be offensive? Is saying ugly offensive in itself? No. Is saying you are ugly offensive? Not always. If you call an ugly person ugly and you say it to hurt their feelings, well, that's malicious intent and you're trying to mess with somebody. That's wrong. But is saying the word ugly wrong in itself? No. Is calling someone ugly wrong all the time? Not necessarily. Is saying, if I just say, you know, if I just say nigger, is there anything wrong with that? Is that you hate black people? You want to ruin black people? Because you utter a word that is offensive in a context. No, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that, actually. It would, you know, and again, it goes back to what is our moral compass? Offense, sensitivity, so-called harm. You know, that is not my moral compass. My moral compass is based on my religion. My religion is Christianity. So there's nothing in the Ten Commandments actually about offending people or hurting people's feelings. There's really not a whole lot in the Bible about offending people or hurting people's feelings, actually. There's some. But that's not really the crux of it. And actually, you know, Jesus hurts people's feelings all the time. Not maliciously and not attacking them based on like their race or other characteristics. But the point is, there's nothing wrong in itself with uttering words that could be offensive. And there's not always something wrong with offending people, even when that is the intention. But we've got this train here where it's like, well, you uttered a word, that makes you racist. What is racism? Well, nobody can ever really define it for us, but it's evil. It's the most evil thing. And like Rogan said, he said, even if you're put in a position where you're accused of being racist, you're wrong. So this whole thing is just completely messed up. And by the way, everybody knows this. And nobody should have to go to great lengths to explain this. You shouldn't have to think very deeply about why it is not morally wrong to utter a word that could be offensive in a certain context. But we do, because this is the moral compass. This is the moral standard of the media, the government, your employer, the society. This is the moral standard which has taken over the society, and it's wrong. And it has to be repudiated, and it has to be disproved, which is what, you know, that's the task that we're up to. But everybody knows that, and that's why everybody says, you know, in vague and general terms, oh, this political correctness is out of control. Oh, everything's racist. What even is racism? And we could get into that. We could get into the substance of that. But let me just reiterate for everybody, you know, how ridiculous it is. And shame on Joe Rogan for apologizing. He's got nothing to apologize for. Saying a word, again, absent of context, not in a directed way, there's nothing to apologize for. He's apologizing for using a word. He's saying that because he was merely accused of being a certain way, that makes him wrong in itself. If you have to explain why you're not racist, you messed up. Really? So if I call Joe Rogan a pedophile, he messed up? Hey, you're a pedophile. No, I'm not. Well, but hey, if I'm getting accused of it, I messed up somewhere. What? That doesn't make any sense. And of course, what this is all about, just like with the Holocaust, these third rails, these taboos, which everybody is so afraid of, deathly afraid of saying certain things or getting caught or exposed saying certain things, and the social consequences. These third rails exist for a reason. It's particular things that you're not allowed to say. It's particular people that are not allowed to say them. And they're not arbitrary. They are not random. It is not crazy. It is not out of control. It is very much in control. It is very much rational. It is deliberate, intentional, by design. We covered just the other day the Holocaust. And another major public figure being canceled, Whoopi Goldberg, was canceled because she said the Holocaust was about inhumanity, which is, actually makes sense, honestly. To whatever extent you believe the some of what is said about the Holocaust, whether you think that they were making mattresses out of human hairs and there were roller coasters and masturbation machines and turning people into bars of soap, whatever you believe went on there, in World War II and the associated atrocities, the concentration camps on both sides, the concentration camps that the Germans were put into, the concentration camps that the Germans put their enemies into, the concentration and work camps that the Soviets put their people into. Inhumanity kind of defined the whole conflict. Inhumanity kind of defined that entire period. It really isn't something wrong. But because she did not say specifically, because she allegedly minimized or sort of sidestepped the victimization of minorities, particularly Jews in the Holocaust, she was canceled. And now they're bringing on an ADL expert to educate them, and she's being suspended for 2 weeks, and she's going to have to, she issued this groveling apology. And what I said last week about that is, it's not arbitrary or random that there is such sensitivity surrounding the Holocaust issue. It is not arbitrary. It's not political correctness gone wrong or gone crazy or off the rails that there's a Holocaust museum in every major city. And it's mandated by state law that it's in the curriculum in grade school, and that you have the ADL, which is an institution that enforces belief in and subservience to the narrative about the Holocaust. None of that is an accident. None of that is some, excess of something. That is all for a very specific political interest, which is to say that insofar as you cannot talk about the Holocaust, or you can't talk about the Israel lobby or Jewish power or anything like that, you can't challenge the dominant political consensus. You can't unlearn all the white guilt that you've been taught because of through atrocity propaganda like this. We can't have a national movement. We can't have national cohesion and unity. We can't be proud of our heritage as white people because of this narrative strenuously, totally enforced by every major institution in America. It's by design. It's not crazy, it's not irrational, it's not random, it's by design. This is meant to shut down a specific political conversation, not a random political conversation, a specific conversation, which goes something like this. Why can our government not put its people first? Why can we not maintain the character and the texture of life of our country? Why can we not have a government of loyalists and patriots who put their country first? Why can we not be skeptical of outsiders and foreign interests? Why can't we assert a unique national identity and character? It's not any random conversation. Fundamentally, it's not even a conversation about events that happened in Poland in the 1940s. It's a conversation about what is to be done, about what is happening in America, what is happening to the Americans right now. And the same goes for the N-word. Why can't people say the N-word? Why can't people talk about black and white race issues? once again, it's because where would that conversation lead to? If whites were able to talk about this conversation without this mental blockade, without having to walk around on eggshells and with a list of banned words and banned phrases and banned terms, I think we would come to figure out what's wrong with race relations in America. I think there's a lot more to do with what's wrong with race relations in America in the south side of Chicago than there is with the policing practices in Minneapolis. Where does it start and where does it end? You can't say that word because you're white. And whites can't say that word because, remember, you were racist. You enslaved people. You uniquely, unlike any other people, bear the historical guilt for the crimes of your ancestors. And so, whitey, because you're guilty, you are not equal. You do not have equality. You cannot say certain words. You can't say certain things. Be careful not to talk out of turn because we've got to make it up to these people. That's what's inherent in that whole thing. You can't say that word because you bear guilt, you bear shame, and therefore you need to accommodate these people in this new country. You need to accommodate these non-white, so-called minority people in America because always have to be reminded you're powerful, you're privileged. You can't say the N-word because you were the belligerent, you were the antagonist, you're the bad one. That's what that's about. Oh, I know I'm a white person. I know I can't say that. I know what my ancestors did. I know, everything that I've just said. And what is it supposed to do? It is supposed to prevent white people from being proud, white people from being honest, white people thinking of themselves as equals to blacks, thinking of themselves as equals to everybody else, and then therefore being entitled to the same rights and the same dignity and the same respect as everybody else. And if we started to do that, I think things would start to turn around very quickly. But that's what that's about. They do not see whites as equals, and telling white people you can't say certain words is about reminding them that they are not equal. Reminding them that because of what their ancestors did in the past, they will have a diminished future. You had the advantage before, now you have the disadvantage. And on the whole, it's equal, but you're not equal now. That's the message. So, no, I will say the N-word. Actually, no, I will say it. I will say it. And, there's a lot, and, frankly, there's a lot of people who will say the same thing I'm saying, or more or less. I mean, they won't say everything I just said, specifically not about the Holocaust. But people, and here's the thing, there's a lot of conservatives out there that will lambast so-called political correctness, but they will never do anything about it. Will they themselves say the things that are politically incorrect? No, they won't. What they will do is they will steer you down a different path, or they will sort of cut the conversation off and say, this political correctness is crazy. Oh, I'm a racist because I said the N-word? Oh, no, I'm not. It's just a word. Will I say it? No, of course not. Will I associate with someone who says it? No, I won't. But I think it's wrong. Somewhere in my mind, I think it's wrong. And, one of these days, someone, but not me, should do something about it. Really? So just shut up. If you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is, then do us all a favor and just shut up about political correctness. Honest to God. I'm so sick of it because everybody wants to talk about censorship and everybody wants to talk about political correctness and they want to talk about anti-white and they want to talk about all this stuff, but all they want to do is just sort of broach the surface of it, fold their arms and just complain. But are they willing to break the conditioning? Are they willing to go full awakened mode? Are they willing to be free? No, they're not. So if you're not willing to do that, then just shut up. You might as well be apologizing like Joe Rogan. You might as well be. Same mentality, same shackled thinking. We have to be the change that we want to see, So Joe Rogan, he shouldn't have apologized. He should have been out there and said, you know what? And I wouldn't even say I'm not a racist. He could have said that, but he shouldn't have even addressed it. Or he should have put something out and said, get over it. Get over it. Literally. Just shut up. Get over it. Because it's what it is fake outrage by Joe Rogan's political enemies. There are liberals out there who believe that Joe Rogan is a Nazi. Let's just be plain about it here. The only people that are pretending to be offended by this, what's going on here is people that hate Joe Rogan already, hardcore left-wing people who think that Joe Rogan is a Nazi. They think that Joe Rogan is spreading COVID disinformation. They think he's a crypto-fascist. They think he's a crypto-white supremacist. You've got these people that hate America, hate God, hate white people. They're communist, they're Antifa, they're whatever. They see a misstep like this. They see something that isn't going to play well, and they're using that to try to hurt his career. That's all that it is. They are using that to deplatform him. People that hate Joe Rogan are pretending to be offended. They're pretending to be insulted and outraged and hurt and all of this. And they're using that to pressure people into leaving the platform to financially hurt Joe Rogan so that Spotify will censor him and they can maintain the liberal consensus. They can protect the liberal consensus at all costs from a conservative, a free thinker, a contrary opinion. It's what it is. And so why would we give in to that? Why would we, when a right-wing watch or a Huffington Post or a Daily Beast or a Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, when people that hate you and want to see you dead, people that are your political enemies, when they pretend to be outraged or pretend to be morally offended by something, why would we take that and use that to modify our behaviors? Do they care when we're offended? When we're offended by what they do, they just flip us off. When we say things like they're aborting and murdering children, you know what they do? They go out there and do these obscene demonstrations where they say, we're pro-abortion and we're proud of our abortion. They make jokes about it. They make jokes about killing babies. They revel in how much they offend our moral sensibilities. When we go out there and say, shame on you for killing babies, shame on you for doing this, they say, I'm a liberal baby killer. I bet you hate that. Because they fully understand the score. They fully understand the nature and the dynamic of this political conflict. And when it comes to gay people, when we say, hey, like, they're predators. They're coming for our kids. You've got Drag Queen Story Hour. You've got children drag queens. They're trying to propagandize young children into believing gender ideology and all this sexual licentiousness. You know what they say? They make jokes like that San Francisco gay choir, and they say, we're coming for your kids. It is a gay agenda, blah, blah, blah. Do they care that we're outraged? Do they care about our moral sensibilities? Of course not. When Fox News does a hit piece on Joe Biden or on AOC, do they listen to Fox News? Do they issue a groveling apology and say, I'm sorry for wearing a tan suit. I'm sorry for waging a war on Christmas? They revel in it. They make jokes about it at the White House Correspondents' Dinner or on Stephen Colbert. But when the liberal media says, oh, you said the N-word, or oh, you made a joke about the Holocaust, or oh, you said this, we allow ourselves to be guilt-tripped. And Darren Beattie coined a term for this. It's called moral imperialism. They're occupying our minds. They are enforcing their moral standard on us. We are internalizing their moral standard. Moral imperialism. They, in the dominant thought and taste-making institutions, are signaling and enforcing a standard of morality which conservatives are accepting in spite of the fact that the people in charge of those institutions hate them and want to see them dead. And so conservatives have tricked themselves into thinking that we need to be the anti-racist ones. We need to be the anti-Semitic ones. We need to be the ones that are more liberal than the left. We need to prove our liberal bona fides to the liberals. We need to appease their moral standard and show them how good we are in their moral framework. That's wrong. No, we do not need to try to beat the left at its own game at being more anti-racist. Racism isn't real. Who cares? To the extent that it is real, it's not an issue. You know what my moral standard is? It comes from the Bible. It comes from the church. You know, when I look at the things that are morally offensive in the society today, this show and what I say on this show, offensive, it may be, it doesn't rank in the top 1,000 issues. You've got a genocide of the unborn going on. You've got a divorce rate at 50%. Everybody's using contraceptives. Nobody's going to church. Hardly anybody, like maybe half the population, doesn't believe in God. People are atheists. They're not getting baptized. You have rampant pedophilia in the institutions of power. It's lies. I mean, where does it even begin? The crime, the gangs, the drug abuse, the acceptance of drug abuse, and people pushing drugs, the carjackings, the murders, the violence, the addiction. But we're going to allow ourselves to be tricked into being crusaders against so-called racism, which is really a crusade against whites. We're going to crusade against our own kind and our own freedoms. I'm the least racist person ever. I've never said the N-word. Well, okay. I use it all the time, actually. Because I'm not controlled by my political enemies. That's why. Because I'm a free man. I'm white and I am equal. I'm white and I can say anything that anyone else can say. I'm not saying it to be shocking or gratuitous or outrageous. I'm saying it because you can't control me. And I'm demonstrating that you can't control me. It's not enough to say, oh, I don't think it's offensive, but I would never use it. No, I can say it. I can and I will, and I do. So that's Joe Rogan and this. I didn't even finish the article here. I mean, it goes on to talk about Spotify is not going to fire him, but they are going to ban 100 of his shows, and they are disavowing it, basically. They say that Joe Rogan's opinions don't reflect the company's opinions, and they deleted 100 plus episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience, and those shows are just gone now because Spotify has the exclusive rights to own those shows. So Spotify deletes them, they're gone. Some people might have them locally, maybe someone uploads them somewhere, but Spotify has the exclusive rights to them. If they're not on Spotify, they're gone. So all his shows with Milo, Alex Jones, even other people, I think he did a show with Molyneux, they're gone. And that's what they're doing. So, let me ask you this then. What's more troubling, racism and somebody saying a word, or a giant tech monopoly deciding what is allowed in the digital record of history for posterity? Because I'd be a lot more concerned that a partisan at Spotify or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, as a monopoly acting, or an oligopoly, acting with dominant market share, and one of the biggest tech companies in the world is censoring the digital historical record. Those shows are gone. And look at how much history has already been destroyed through censorship. I mean, we tried yesterday to go through some of the history of America First, and there's a lot of stuff that's just gone because I was banned from everything. And so what is more of a troubling proposition, that people would be saying a word in a descriptive way, or that a tech overlord in Silicon Valley controls and arbitrates the historical record in real time? So this is it's not good. And this shows the limitations of this institutional approach. A lot of people look at Joe Rogan on Spotify and go, wow, our guy on a big platform on Spotify. But you do not use the system uses you. People think they're instrumentalizing the system. People think that Joe Rogan is instrumentalizing Spotify, using Spotify to get his message out, and he's doing this in a tactful and clever way. It never works that way. Rarely does it work that way. The system instrumentalizes the opposition every time. People thought that Donald Trump was going to get in the White House, and Trump thought he was going to use John Bolton, and he thought that he was going to use Kevin McCarthy and Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. He thought he was going to use Sheldon Adelson. Guess what happened? They used him. Spotify used Joe Rogan. Fox News is using Tucker Carlson. It's not to say that they're not making progress. Donald Trump made a lot of progress. Tucker is amazing, and he makes progress every night. And Joe Rogan, I guess, is making some progress. But at the end of the day, a lot of these people are just fundamentally, because of their engagement with the system, they have to compromise themselves. The goal is to create a parallel system that is not compromised. That is the goal. And insofar as people are in the institutions, their goal should be siphoning resources and support and attention to a parallel system that is not dependent. And that's why this movement and me, that's why we are so important. Because I'm doing it without the permission. I'm doing it without the compromise. I'm doing it without the strings attached. And so, you know, you could have a politician or some institution confer legitimacy on somebody, and they make all these compromises. They have a squeaky clean image, and they don't say certain things. And some people say that's a great accomplishment. It is so much better to have somebody without the strings attached, who says the raunchy things, who says the shocking things, to have the same legitimacy conferred. Because only then, when we create something truly independent, will we be able to exert real influence. Only way. Otherwise, we're just going to pull the plug, shut it down the moment that things get too heated, the moment that it gets too out of control for them, the moment that they are not instrumentalizing us. The moment that I am not instrumentalizing my hair to look good on this show. To look good on this show. Okay. Somebody on Twitter today said, Nick Fuentes said Aryan, but he has brown eyes and black hair and an olive complexion. I have brown hair. I have wavy, light brown hair, and I have green eyes, okay? Just so everybody understands. But I saw that on Twitter today. My hair would probably be easier to style if it was black. If it was thin, fine, black hair like Hispanics have. No, I have puffy, frizzy, brown hair. Okay, so that's Joe Rogan. That's Spotify. And that's that whole deal. Okay, so let's move on to our featured story, which is about the Canadian Freedom Convoy. Very funny story. But I only say this stuff about Spotify because people tell me all the time, they're like, oh, you know, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. Even like based people will tell me, you know, that I say too much or whatever. And to me, it's like the more the better. Like that mentality is just so wrong. The more the better. The more the merrier. You know? I pride myself on the fact that I've said out there things. We should, if there's any, if we're not going to be precisely on point, I would always prefer to err on the side of gratuity and being too over the top than not enough. Because there's a shortage of that, you know? What do we have too much of? People that are being too truthful or people that are not being truthful enough? People that are too reckless or people that are too refined or too reserved? You know what I'm saying here? So I get where people look at me and they say, oh, you know, you said something that is really going to turn a lot of people off and like you're alienating people when you say certain things. It's like, look, man, we got to break the conditioning. I'm coming in like a wrecking ball. I'm trying to blow up the frame, and we could pick up the pieces later. I'm really not worried about that. I'm worried about waking people up and demonstrating that there is a movement out here that isn't 100% controlled and scripted. So, yeah, sometimes I regret what I say. Sometimes it's over the line. Sometimes it's something that's going to turn people off and people don't like it or people can take it out of context. But so what? We have a country to save, and there's so many lies. And this standard we have to hold ourselves to, we've got to say everything perfectly and say it in such a way that it can't be taken out of context and never, like that approach is just too fragile, it's too delicate. And what? if we just get the right person to say everything perfectly and never make a mistake and never say anything, that's deemed too offensive, we're playing their game. We're still playing their game, and you just don't get it, do you? They said the same thing about Donald Trump. And he said they're bringing drugs, crime, and rapists. Everybody said, oh, he's out. He's never going to make it. You can't say that in politics. He should apologize. And there were a million such cases like this. And people loved it. People loved the don't give an F, no holds barred, refreshing candor and honesty, and they prefer that, even if it's a little, and some people get it in their heads, oh, well, that's not electable. Well, he won the election. He built a coalition that Romney, McCain were not able to build. He won the Midwest, even with cheating in 2016, and they were wrong. And in any case, it's a little bit bigger than just an election or whatever. So that's what I feel about the N-word and saying the N-word. It's a word. Okay.